going to get the show on the road. Good morning, brothers and sisters, and welcome to this men's event. My name is Tommy Anderson. I'm the newly elected chair of London Hazards. As you all know, London Hazards has been going for some time, but during the COVID we got decimated and we weren't able to operate as normal for the last 2 to 3 years. But I'm now glad to say that we're now up and running and we're now starting to organise ourselves. Hence, we're organising this event to remember the people who died of this terrible disease, everything else there. I'm also the organiser of GLATS, which covers all the trade councils in London and the South East. So I'm speaking on wearing 2 hats. So I'm there. So without further ado, I'm now going to ask Laurie from the TUC to come and say a few words.
Thanks, Tommy. My name's Laurie. I work here at the TUC. I'm very proud to do so. Speak a lot on behalf of the TUC, and when you do so, very often you put sort of some professional clothes on. I'm not saying what we do, what we say is artificial. It's still authentic, but you've got kind of that professional mode on. But this today is personal, so I'll see how far I get through this. We're gathered here today to pay our respects to those that have lost their lives to mesothelioma. And it's personal because that includes someone I worked with here, whose name is Barry Francis, who will not be sad that I'm mentioning that. Barry passed away, it was probably 3 years ago. Now I worked with him for 15 years. He was a great work colleague, but a really brilliant friend and a brilliant trade unionist as well. I know another person who works for the TUC whose father died of mesothelioma. So this is something that it's not a super common disease, but it's much more common than people realise. 2,500 people approximately died of mesothelioma last year, just more than 5,000 probably of asbestosis. If you get mesothelioma, it will kill you, basically. There is no cure. 60% of people die within a year. That's a lot of people's lives, a lot of people's families that are affected. And we're gathered here today for a vigil, mostly to respect those people that we've lost and all the support that their families provided for. So that's the main thing that we're here to do today. But we're here to do a secondary thing as well, and that's to campaign to eliminate this dreadful disease. If you look at the numbers, they say that the UK has the highest known rate of mesothelioma of any country in the world. If you look at the numbers, it says that the number of men being diagnosed with mesothelioma have gone up by 60% from 1993 to 30 years later to today. And the number of women diagnosed gone up by 90% in the same time. And that disease is moving from an industrial or disease where the exposure was in what we would call industry, steel works and the rest of it, people who worked on ships, more and more into the public domain. We have thousands of buildings in this country, public buildings that have asbestos in them. And we believe at the TUC that there needs to be an eradication strategy. That asbestos needs to be removed, and it needs to be removed quickly and on a firm timetable. So I'm going to steal, in a sense, from the International Workers' Day memorial that we hold once a year. We're here to remember the dead and to fight for the living and make mesothelioma, a disease of the past, make it history. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jim. I'm now going to move on swiftly and call Steve from London Hazards.
Following from Laurie's remarks, we're not here just to pay tribute and to remember those people who died from mesothelioma. A preventable disease. It's the biggest workplace killer that there is. It kills more people and more people die from mesothelioma, asbestos-related diseases than on the roads, in road accidents. And there's a couple of people, well, one person in particular I'm going to pay tribute to who's not here today. I'm here in his place, the previous chair of London Hazard Centre, Philip Lewis, who one of the major achievements that he did was to separate the work of London Hazard Centre from, we have no capacity to look after those people who are suffering. We only have the capacity to put our foot in the door of those politicians who say we can't afford to get rid of asbestos. So I'm just going to restrict my remarks. He's a better speaker than I am too. So I'm just going to restrict my opening remarks to pay my respects collectively on behalf of London Hazards to our previous chair who's not able to be here because of he's not so well. That's also impacted our work over the last 2 years that Tom has been referring to. Now then, I'm going to be moving on now. We invited Stephen Twigg, who chairs the Work and Pensions Committee, to attend, and he sent a short message. I'll get through it. I applaud this vigil and the declaration of Action Mesothelioma Day and commend the efforts of trade unions and others to draw attention to the continuing scandal of asbestos-related deaths. Use of asbestos has been banned in the UK for over 20 years, yet it remains each year the biggest source of work-related deaths. Buildings will be going through major changes in the next few years to deliver on net zero objectives. This risks disturbing asbestos, creating new hazards for workers. But it also provides an opportunity to remove the asbestos effectively and safely, I'll put that bit in myself, in the course of other work. The Work and Pensions Select Committee's report on asbestos management was published in March last year. Its two recommendations were that a 40-year deadline should be set for removing all workplace asbestos in the UK and a plan drawn up to achieve it, and that a central digital register of all workplace asbestos should be established to support the plan. Unfortunately, the government has rejected both recommendations, and I'm hoping that a new government elected next year will take a different view. So Stephen Timms, MP, Chair, Work and Pensions Select Committee. Well, I think that was quite a powerful message. And what the next remark, now I'm going to turn to my script, which I have to say is drawn directly from a magazine, an article in our magazine written by the Technical Director of the Joint Union Asbestos Committee, to whom I also pay tribute, Jill Reid. And all the facts and figures that I'm about to provide you now, remind you of, come from her, are reprinted here in here for you to look at again. Sorry, next month, not this one, isn't it? It's the next one, yeah. The Work and Pensions Committee, which I just referred to, reported, as I just referred to, that there should be a 40-year deadline, which I've got done, and then confirmed, the HSE has confirmed that it will not fulfil that ethical recommendation. The HSE argues that keeping undisturbed asbestos in place is adequate because of the risk to professional removalist specialists. And of course, this ignores the known risk to the millions of uninformed pupils and thousands of staff and visitors in asbestos-riddled system-built schools. It ignores that risk. The Medical Researchers Council in 1997 warned that, in quotes, children attending schools built prior to 1975 are likely to inhale around 3 million respirable asbestos fibres. Exposure to asbestos in schools may therefore constitute a significant part of their exposure. The evidence since 1917 has been irrefutable. Profit-driven asbestos manufacturers and traders deliberately concealed the real risk from asbestos poisoning during the publicly funded construction of cistern-built schools in the 1960s. The latest HSE asbestos regulations continue to ignore the risk to children developing mesothelioma later in life. The TUC, Joint Union Asbestos, in other words, this is one of Jill's Freedom of Information requests to the DFE, revealed that this was because addressing this risk would lead to pressure for centrally funded initiatives to remove all asbestos from schools and other building work. In other words, sorry, I'll carry on. The HSE reported in 2016 that the financial burden caused by contracting mesothelioma is largely borne by the individual victims and their families. The current HSE asbestos regulations reflect transparently, rather than cutting casualties, because there is no cutting costs rather than cutting casualties, because there is no financial incentive for the Treasury to remove asbestos. Tens of thousands of today's uninformed, unprotected school users, mainly children, will die from mesothelioma if the current Treasury funding priorities are allowed to continue. All parents and staff need to urgently consider what collective action they can take to encourage a more ethical public funding approach that safeguards the health and safety without prejudice of all school users throughout their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Hi, yeah, my name's Hank Roberts. I set up with others the Joint Unions Asbestos Committee, which covers all of the unions in education. Our chair died last September, and I'm going to say a few words about him in a second, but I'd like to say this. The government has adopted a completely ridiculous policy to say that all asbestos should stay where it is. Would they say that if it was found in their house? Of course not. It's pathetic, it's outrageous, and they're not going to get away with it. The National Education Union, the biggest union in education, has launched a legal challenge against the government for its policy over asbestos. It's already started, and they're going to be in trouble. Normally, the courts just do what the bosses want, okay, but in this case, they have to consider the court of public opinion, which is absolutely against them. The Sunday Times has jumped in. I once took the Sunday Times to court, by the way, for libel and won, but they're my best mates at the moment because they had a front page headline over it, and this shows the way the wind is blowing. So they are in trouble, and we are making progress, and we're going to stop this wholesale slaughter. The actual figure to consider is that there have been 100,000 deaths from mesothelioma in this country. This has to stop, and we, and your action, is going to win. It's going to happen. So, to John McLean, he was our chair. He died in September of last year. This is a tribute which includes the words of other DUAC members. The DUAC unions were organising a major health and safety conference at Wembley Stadium with many high-profile speakers invited. Due to COVID, we had to move the date, and then, very sadly, it had to cancel it in March 22nd, as COVID was still an issue regarding attendance in person. John had been enthusiastic about the conference and was pleased to be asked to chair the morning session, entitled Remember the Dead, Fight for the Living. Amongst his other qualities, John was a man of great depth, wisdom and understanding. We will remember his time as chair of DUAC fondly, as someone who was knowledgeable and pragmatic in his approach. It was a pleasure to know him and to have worked with him, campaigning for the banning of asbestos, full stop, fighting for all that we are, campaigning on the education facilities in this country. A Welsh member said, John, he was always generous with his time and knowledge, including coming down and addressing the Assembly members in the Synod. His death was a sad loss, not just to the GMB, but also for all those he touched across the trade union movement. A life well lived in service of the people, a working class hero who will be sadly missed. We're going to take these people on and they're in trouble. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Well, I'm Mick Gilgun, part of London Hazards, been involved in the construction safety campaign. And I was at a function today, 75th anniversary of the NHS, and you can see a link there, because straight away, you know, when people are diagnosed, they're diagnosed through our brilliant NHS. And Jeremy was there, and he rang me on the way here. He was going to come down actually on his bike. Like I said, it's only going to be a short event. But he said, give everyone my best wishes, keep up the good work and campaign work that we do in fighting mesothelioma and the asbestos-related diseases. And he said his thoughts are today with former MP Alice Mann. Alice Mann died of an asbestos-related disease, and I had to be reminded myself. Alice was a great campaigner on trade union work and health and safety, and was part of the campaign group of MPs. So she was quite an active MP. So my thoughts are, well, Jeremy's thoughts are with Alice. He would have been here today. As we know, he's been a great campaigner and support of trade union activity throughout the years. I'm just just to sort of wind up really, because I think maybe Peter wants to say a few words, but Peter would remember there was a scientist called Alan Dalton, and I don't really know Alan Dalton too well, but he was a scientist whose remit was asbestos, and it was through his activity when he discovered the dangers of asbestos that he became blacklisted himself. So you got a scientist that was on a blacklist. So, you know, that's strong. We remember all those that have fought for and campaigned in the past. Just before I go, remember the dead, fight for the living.
Right. I'm now going to ask Stephen Garrett from the GMB to come and say a few words.
Good afternoon, comrades. Today we don't only remember the workers, the school workers, the school staff, the students, but we also remember the auto workers who have fitted brakes, the Hoffman pressers who worked tirelessly in factories where they were producing garments and then contracted mesothelioma. We have a situation in this country where we have a government who are quite prepared to put into wasted PPE but are not prepared to spend money where it really matters. And the reality is the education levels in relation to asbestos, asbestosis, mesothelioma and the related illnesses is not only far from limited but frankly is pitiful. The reality is many people do not realise that the effects of these illnesses that derive from asbestos could have been preventable and could still be preventable, because my fear is that in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time we'll be standing in the same place talking about the same problems. We must fight this, we must fight this, we must fight this. Solidarity.
Thank you.
The Asbestos Victim Support Group Forum UK is demanding that Cape, former asbestos manufacturer, now owned by Altred, donate £10 million to mesothelioma research. Mesothelioma is an under-researched cancer caused by asbestos. New documents obtained after a bitter court battle show that Cape sought to hide the true dangers of asbestos products. It sold from the 1950s to the 1980s. Many died because of Cape's actions. Thousands are still being newly diagnosed of asbestos diseases like mesothelioma. Even today. Join us at Barking on the 10th of July 2023 and Warrington on the 17th of July 2023. Ask your MP to sign early day motions 93, tabled 23rd of May 2022. So we're asking everybody to come along at Barking, 3 o'clock at Barking Town Hall this Monday. Thank you.
Okay then, come on there. And now I'm going to ask Rob Williams from the Shop Stewards Network to come and say a few words.
Thanks Tommy, thanks comrades. My name is Rob Williams from the National Shop Stewards Network, and I just want to pay tribute, like everyone else has, to all those workers and their families that have had their lives destroyed really through exposure to asbestos, through the extraction, the manufacture, and then of course construction workers as well, but also those working in buildings riven with asbestos. And I just want to make this point that the history of our movement is that the trade unions, and strong and powerful trade unions, are the best protection for health and safety and against the hazards that affect workers back in the mines with dust, but of course on this terrible disease as well. And we are calling for government intervention. I'm not sure many of us are confident this government will intervene, but of course future governments. But of course this government won't intervene with the profits of big business, but they do want to intervene with the ability of trade unions to organise. So just now, well, they will say they can't intervene in issues like this, but other health and safety issues, then they are on the verge of passing anti-union legislation, probably one of the most brutal anti-union legislation that we faced on the back of 4 decades worth. And really, the trade unions, the necessity for strong and powerful organised trade unions in the workplace is now essential more than ever, not just against the cost of living squeeze, but for the health and safety workers. And we in the NSSN are proud to be associated with campaigns and organisations like those you've heard today in the power and organising trade unions. But we also believe that the necessity of trade unions to act together, to organise together against this Tory government's anti-union legislation is absolutely vital. So, you know, we're proud to be here today and we want to pay tribute to all those affected by this terrible disease. Solidarity.
I've just got a couple of things to add. I need to thank London Hazard Centre and the London Asbestos Support Awareness Group, snappy title, for a brilliant organisation for organising this event today. I just wanted to say a couple of things, picking up on what other people said, in support, not contradictorily. First thing is, this building was built in the 50s. There was asbestos in it, quite a lot. And the TUC decided to take it out safely. It decided it was a priority. So this is now an asbestos-free building. I'm proud of that. It can be done. We've shown the way. There are no excuses. We need to rid our workplaces and our public buildings of asbestos. Second thing to say is we're out here on the steps of Congress House. This is the physical and spiritual home of the trade union movement in Britain, and I'm incredibly proud of it. And the bit of the building I am most proud of are these steps. Right? I don't walk into work coming under that canopy. I come up these steps, I go down these steps. Every working person and their family should be proud and being able to walk into this building up those steps. It's an enabling place for some workers, so that it's entirely appropriate that we're meeting here on step today. It's a wonderful venue. And apart from that, since we're releasing doves, it's a matter of safety, health, welfare and well-being for the doves. They get released outside rather than inside. It's not a day for long speeches, it's a day for remembrance. So I want to just say again, remember the dead, fight for the living.
Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure how I can follow on from all these speeches today. However, I just want to let you know that I am part of the London Asbestos Support Awareness Group, and we see on a daily basis people that are suffering with mesothelioma. The age range is now kind of ladies in their 20s all the way up to men in their 70s and 80s. Doesn't seem to matter too much now what kind of job they were doing, so we are seeing a lot more from the schools and teachers, GPs, nurses, doctors, all those kind of people. We support them in very many ways, and they all are individuals. We treat them all as individuals and give them the support that they need. Obviously, being London based, we cover the whole of London and all of the South East. We are part of the Asbestos Victim Support Group Forum, so as it's been mentioned today, some of the campaigns that they're running, one is being the asbestos in schools and the second one being CAPE, so I will be embarking on the 10th of July, again doing a speech. I'm really proud to be part of the Asbestos Support Group. It's a matter that's very close to my heart, especially as we see on a regular basis the effects that mesothelioma has on people. We support the patients from when they're diagnosed all the way to the end of life, and we do continue to support their families as well. I think that's probably about it for me. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Okay, ladies and gents, brothers and sisters, it comes the time that we've got to release the doves. But please, what I want to say is, please remember all the people that have died with asbestosis, everything else here. And I want you to join with me today as we release the members, that we remember all the people that died, but also as well, we must say, fight for the living, remember the dead. Fight for the living, remember the dead. Everybody's here. We fight for the dead, remember the living. Now we're going to release the doves. Ready? 1, 2, 1.
Need a bit of encouragement.
Yes. Hey, come on in. Yes.
One day for your Tommy. 1 hour. Chant again. Remember the dead.
There we go.
Remember the dead, fight for the living. Remember. Oh, that's trade union.
There we go. There we go. That's what we're going for.
Okay. I'll just say, ladies and gents, brothers and sisters, remember, Hazards is here to help and to fight all campaigns of asbestos and everything else here. Please read our magazine. There's an affiliation form in the centre page. Please affiliate to the Hazards campaign and everything else here. And please remember, we're all here together and we'll all fight together and we'll all win together. And thanks to the TUC, Laurie, all the speakers for coming along to speak. And thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you.